All right, everybody, here we are. I'm back again, picking up the last few scenes of Act 3 right here. Picking up with Scene 4, certainly one of the most famous scenes in Macbeth, just because stuff gets really crazy in this one right here. So obviously a lot of this is pretty evident within the performance of the play, but we'll focus in on a few essential parts as we go. All right, so Scene 4. Banquet is prepared. This is the party that Macbeth was referring to and Lady Macbeth were referring to back at the beginning of Scene 1. And so, we have everybody in here, Ross, Lennox, lords, and attendants. It's a big get-together. It's a big party celebrating Macbeth becoming king and his coronation and everything. Okay. So, Macbeth comes in. You know your own degree. Sit down at first and last. The hearty welcome. So welcome everybody. You all know who you are. You all know where to be. Come on in. Let's sit. Let's have a good time. All right. Ourself will mingle with society and play the humble host. Our hostess keeps her state, but in best time we will require her welcome. And so Lady Macbeth jumps in. Well, hey, pronounce it for me, sir. To all our friends, my heart speaks. They are welcome. So everybody's welcome. Now, the murderers are back from their deed in the previous scene, and so they're going to give their report to Macbeth. Okay. So, Macbeth kind of excuses himself from the table here. Hey, I'll sit in the midst, be large in mirth, anon we'll drink a measure, the table around. So we'll all have a big toast here in just a little bit once I get back. So he comes over to the murderer. There's blood upon thy face. 'Tis Banquo's then. 'Tis better thee without than he within. So we can already see how what's the best way to put it? How dismissive Macbeth is of who was his best friend. Oh, it's like, there's blood upon your face. Didn't you know? Okay, well then it's Banquo's blood. Well, 'tis better thee without. It's better it's outside of his body on you than inside him. So is he dispatched? Is he dead? My lord, his throat is cut. That I did for him. Oh, thou art the best of the cutthroats. Yet he's good that did the like for Fleance. If thou didst it, then thou art the nine Poral. So, like, hey, whoever got Fleance too, good for him. If you got both of them, well, then you're just the best of the best. And here's the rub. Most royal sir, Fleance is escaped. And so now, Macbeth, notice that this is meant to be an aside, so it kind of gets us in our head, or in his head again. Then comes my fit again, else had I been perfect. Fleance is still out there. Everything was good, everything was fine. But now that I know that he's still out there, this comes back. Because remember, it wasn't about Banquo becoming king, it was about his sons becoming kings. So in a sense, it was almost more important for Fleance to be killed than Banquo. Whole as marble, founded as the rock, as broad and gentle as the casing air. So this is how I felt before. Whole as marble, like consider like a grand statue, founded as the rock, like solid foundation, as broad and gentle as the casing air. I felt like I encompassed everything. But now I'm cabined, cribbed, confined, bound into saucy doubts and fears. So now he's feeling claustrophobic, back to that paranoia that he was feeling before. Because what is he bound to? Bound to saucy doubts and fears. But Banquo safe? Aye, my good lord. Safe in a ditch he bides, with 20 trenched gashes on his head, the least of death in nature. So, like, basically he's saying Banquo got pretty roughed up. His throat's cut, but his face is also, like, all gashed up at least 20 times. And even the least severe, the least bloody of these gashes would have killed him. So he's definitely dead. Well, thanks for that. There the grown serpent lies, the worm that's fled hath nature in that in time will venom breed, no teeth for the present. So essentially, kind of now he's getting that, well, at least Banquo's gone. And if Banquo's gone, that means that he can't have any other children. So it really just comes down to, okay, Fleance. Fleance is now kind of the only threat left. Because if it were kind of the other way around, if Fleance had been killed but Banquo had escaped, well, then the prophecy kind of would have still been in play because Banquo could have conceivably had other kids and so on and so forth. Okay, so they'll talk again later. All right, Lady Macbeth summons him back. Hey, you don't give the cheer. Come on back. Let's have a good drink. Let's do all that. And now we see the ghost of Banquo enters and sits in Macbeth's place. Now, of course, this isn't just setting up the horror that's to come, but there's also some symbolic significance to this. That in Banquo's ghost coming in and sitting in Macbeth's place, he is sitting in the place of the king. So there's some symbolic resonance to this bit of stage direction here as well. Okay. So, notice Macbeth is kind of doing what he said he was going to do. He was going to present Banquo eminence with eye and tongue. Here had we now our country's honor roofed, were the graced person of Banquo present. Oh, everything would be even better. It would be the best if Banquo were just here, who I may rather challenge for unkindness than pity for mischance. Well, I guess he's just not that great of a guy for him to show up, but, I mean, it's okay. Ross comes in. His absent sir lays blame upon his promise. Pleased to your highness to grace us with your royal company. Well, I mean, hey, it's okay. Banquo, broke his promise that he was going to come here. That's his own fault. But you know what, king? You're here, so come on over. Grace us with your royal company. And now Macbeth. Well, the table's full. And of course, it's only full because the seat reserved for him is occupied by Banquo's ghost. Of course, none of the other people see this. Well, here's the place reserved, sir, Lennox notes. Well, where? Here, my good lord. And once again, we have dialogue that cues Macbeth's reaction to this, even though we don't get a stage direction. Well, here. So we can get the impression that he's pointing to the chair, and now we get that reaction. What is it that moves your highness? Why are you acting that way? Which of you have done this? Notice, Macbeth goes straight towards paranoia. Somebody must be playing some kind of trick on him. Thou canst not say I did it. Never shake that gory locks at me. And so now we kind of try to disperse things. Ross is like, His Highness is not well. Gentlemen, let's rise. Let's call this off. Lady Macbeth is trying to keep things together. Sit, worthy friends. My lord is often thus, and hath been from his youth. He's been seeing things for a long time. Hallucination is not an uncommon thing in my husband. You might not know this, but yeah, now you do. Pray you, keep your seat. The fit is momentary. Upon a thought, he will be well again. If much you note him, you shall offend him and extend his passion. So just try to ignore him. Don't pay attention to him. The more you do, he's just going to get more bothered by him. Feed, regard him not, just enjoy your dinners, and I'll take care of this. Drawing him aside. Are you a man? So Lady Macbeth still has that little bit of edge in her right there, get it together, buddy. I, and a bold one that dare look on that which might appall the devil. Oh, proper stuff. This is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan. It's interesting that we can see that Macbeth didn't just keep that whole hallucination to himself, but that he actually, at some point, has told Lady Macbeth about this dagger that he saw, that we know he was speaking about back in Act 2, Scene 1. And Lady Macbeth is just saying, look, you were just seeing things. This is just like that. This is just your fear manifesting. It's not a real thing. It's just a painting. It's a representation of your fear. Just like that dagger was that you said led you to Duncan. Oh, these flaws and starts imposters to true fear. It's not really something to be afraid of. It's an imposter. Would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire. Here, she knows she's kind of attacking his masculinity again. These flaws and starts imposters to true fear would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire. You're just you're acting like a girl, man. Come on. Authorized by her grand dame. Shame itself. Why do you make such faces when all's done? You look but on a stool. You're just looking at an empty chair. And so, once again, he sees that ghost. Look, how say you? And so they kind of go back and forth here a little bit. Macbeth is saying, hey, I promise you, I saw him. He was there. And Lady Macbeth is still just fie for shame. Get it together. And now Macbeth is kind of thinking to his own self right here, well, hey, at one point in time, if you killed somebody, they would stay dead. Hey, the time has been that when the brains were out, the man would die and there would be an end. But now they rise again. with 20 mortal murders on their crown. So that's kind of referring to those 20 gashes that the murderer said was in Banquo's head. Now he's kind of referring back to it, those 20 mortal murders in their crowns. Okay, Lady Macbeth is like, hey, your friends know lack you. Come on back. All right, now Macbeth is kind of trying to pick up with what Lady Macbeth had said. Oh, yeah, hey, don't muse at me, my most worthy friends. I have a strange infirmity, which is nothing to those that know me. If you know me, you know it's not a big deal. It's fine. So let's just go get back to our party. I'll sit down. Give me some wine. And Shakespeare with the little joke here, fill full, like, give me a lot of it. I need it. And so the ghost is back again. And so Macbeth sees this ghost again. He notice how he tries to, with this drink, give a toast to Banquo. And of course it's terribly ironic, to our dear friend Banquo, whom we miss. Oh, would he were here, which of course is ironic because in a sense he is. And so he sees the ghost again. Avaunt and quit my sight. Let the earth hide thee. Thy bones are marrowless. Thy blood is cold. You should be dead. Thou hast no speculation in those eyes which thou dost glare with. If you can think of like a dead-eyed person, kind of blank, clouded over, empty stare, that's what he's all referring to here. Lady Macbeth is once again trying to say, oh, it's just a thing that happens. Once again, he's kind of coming back again. What man dare? I dare. Approach like the rugged Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros, hyrcan tiger. Take any shape but that. Like, you can be any kind of fearsome creature, but just don't look like that. Don't take on that form of Banquo there. Okay. And so, Lady Macbeth she's kind of had enough of it. You have displaced the mirth. And of course, the mirth is like the good feeling about things. Broke the good meeting with most admired disorder. Okay. And now Macbeth is coming back and saying, I'm just seeing strange things. How can you act so normally when all these terrible things are happening? What sights? And Lady Macbeth is like, okay, fine. This is over. Everybody, go. Question enrages him. At once, good night. Stand not upon the order of your going, but go at once. Because typically, of course, if you were at a king's function, at a king's dinner, if you were going to leave, you had to be dismissed by the king himself. And so Lady Macbeth is like, hey, don't wait for the king to tell you it's okay to leave. Just go ahead and go. Get out of here. Okay. Now, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have a little bit of a conversation right here again about how he's seeing all these horrible things. Lady Macbeth answering his question, what is the night? In other words, what time is it? Almost at odds with morning, which is which? Like, it's almost like the sun's about to come up. Why is that a big deal? And now notice what Macbeth says here. This is important. How sayest thou that Macduff denies his person at our great bidding? So now that Macbeth has, you might say, taken his paranoia out on Banquo and murdering Banquo, his paranoia has to find some place, someone to land on. So Banquo's gone. So who's the next logical person for it to turn to? Macduff. And why Macduff? Well, because as we know, Macduff wasn't going to show up. This was a dinner to celebrate his coronation, his crowning. We know that Macduff didn't show up. He just went back home to Fife. And so Macbeth turns to that. Why is it that Macduff doesn't show up when we asked him to show up? And my Lady Macbeth, well, did you send to him, sir? And he knows he doesn't answer the question. And she's like, well, did you ask him to come? And Macbeth kind of takes it like, I'm king. Of course he should be here. So he doesn't even regard that question. He doesn't even dignify it with a response. Instead, he comes back and says, I hear it, by the way, but I will send. There is not a one of them, but in his house I keep a servant feed. This is really interesting because Macbeth is basically here saying that I keep spies in all the houses of the Thanes. Now we see the true depths of his paranoia. and that he doesn't trust anyone. Instead, he has his spies planted in every single house, and so that if anything is up, if anything alarms him, he knows about it. And so he goes on to say, I will tomorrow, and betimes I will to the weird sisters. More shall they speak, for now I am bent to know by the worst means the worst. So things are getting really crazy. This all started with the witches. I'm going to go back to them, and I'm going to find out what's what. Even if it's terrible, I want to know. I have to know. For mine own good, all causes shall give way. He's only thinking of himself now. And now here's another important line. I am in blood, stepped so far, that should I wade no more, returning were as tedious as go o'er. As we've noticed so far, the bodies in this play are really starting to pile up. Duncan, the guards, now Banquo as well. And so Macbeth is saying, I am in blood. He is wading into an ocean of blood. And he's gone so far that he's basically saying, I'm at a point at which turning around and going back to the way I came, in other words, going back to being like a noble, good-hearted person, to being that person that Lady Macbeth described as being too full of the milk of human kindness, going back, returning, were just as tedious as go o'er. So I could either turn back the way I came, or just keep wading deeper and deeper into this ocean of blood. And now we can see that this is a point of decision for Macbeth, and he's basically saying, I'm in so deep, I guess I'll just go deeper. Strange things I have in head that will to hand, which must be acted ere they may be scanned. And this is kind of an echo of his words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives that we saw back in Act 2, that he's saying, strange things, hey, I have in head that will to hand. So I have thoughts, I have ambitions in my head that I have to act on, and they must be acted or else they may be scanned. In other words, scanned being thought of, being turned over in one's mind. And so we see Macbeth drifting further and further away from a man of words and being a man of internal conflict and talking himself in and out of things, to being a man of just pure action. And here he's essentially saying that I'm beyond even thinking about things. If something comes into my head, then I just need to do it and act on it before I even think about it. And Lady Macbeth comes and says, you lack the season of all natures, sleep. The thing that keeps people sane is sleep, and you haven't done it. Macbeth responds, come, will to sleep. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear that wants hard use. We are but young indeed. This is kind of an interesting thing where we could say that maybe Macbeth is part of his kind of insanity is extending from just simple insomnia, which in itself was prophesied. Macbeth shall sleep no more. Macbeth hath murdered sleep. Thus Macbeth will sleep no more. And Lady Macbeth sees that. You haven't slept. And he's like, okay, well, we'll sleep. It's not going to do me any good. My strange and self-abuse is the initiate fear that wants hard use. We are yet but young indeed. Now, this is kind of interesting that he's saying, well, like, hey, we're young. We haven't been in this office of king very long. And we haven't done enough deeds to secure ourselves just yet. There's still more to be done. There's no time for sleep when there's so much left to do. Okay. So, we'll move quickly through this scene. So, scene 5. This is one of the most frequently cut scenes out of this play. In fact, both of the productions that we've been watching so far don't feature scene 5. Because it has the witches come back out, but also notice, oh, what's happening here? Who are they meeting? Hecate as well. And essentially, this is just a scene. I'm not really going to get into the text specifically. I'm just going to summarize it for you. This is a scene in which Hecate, of course, the goddess of the witches, so essentially the witch's boss, comes on the scene to say, like, hey, what are you doing with Macbeth right here? And they try to kind of explain themselves a little bit. And so she says, well, you know what? I'm not really mad that you're messing with Macbeth. I'm just mad that you didn't involve me. Hecate wants to get in on some of the action right here. And so the one thing that she says that she's going to do is she's not like, I want to be involved. I want to play a little part in this also. And so it's not just the witches themselves that are messing with Macbeth, but now we have the goddess of witchcraft herself getting involved. So you know things are going to get pretty crazy from here on out. And so she says, she gives a little hint at what she's going to contribute to this. So she says, that, let's see, I'll catch it ere it come to the ground, and that, distilled by magic sleights, shall raise such artificial sprites, as by the strength of their illusion shall draw him on to his confusion. He shall spurn fate, scorn death, and bear his hopes above wisdom, grace, and fear. And you all know security is mortal's chiefest enemy. This is kind of interesting what she's getting at right here. She's saying, hey, and you know, when people feel safe, when people feel secure, that is when, in fact, they can be least safe and least secure. Because what's he going to do? He's going to spurn fate. We already know Macbeth is kind of choosing to do that. He's going to scorn death. Okay? He's going to be hopeful above what he should reasonably be hopeful for, wisdom, and for above fear as well. So that's a little bit of foreshadowing right there for you. Okay, scene 6. All right, we'll cover this briefly here as well. So this is Lennox and another lord. So these would be two people that are loyal, presumably, to Macbeth. And we can assume that this is a little bit of a time jump right here to scene 6, that some things have transpired, because they report some news of some things happening in England, for example, and some developments in Scotland also. And so here we kind of get into what they're reporting here. All right, so I say things have been strangely born. So weird stuff has been going on. The gracious Duncan was pitied of Macbeth. Marry, he was dead. So Duncan was really good to Macbeth. Next thing we know, he's dead. And the right valiant Banquo walked too late, whom, if you may say it please you, Fleance killed. So he's being really sarcastic here, because he's saying that seems like the popular report and excuse coming out of the throne is that all these people are dead because their sons are killing them. Of course, that's the story about Duncan, is that Malcolm and Donalbain killed him, and so he's like, well, hey, if it was true of Duncan, it must be true of Banquo as well, then, hey, hey, of course Fleance killed him. Yeah, people are killing their dads left and right. Okay. So, all right, let's see, move on a little bit right here. Okay. So, now the Lord gives some report right here. The son of Duncan, of course, that's referring to Malcolm here, from whom this tyrant holds the due of birth. This is really important, because notice the word that they're describing Macbeth with now. Tyrant. It's not a king. He's a tyrant now. And they're not just saying that he's a tyrant, but he's an unrightful tyrant as well. This tyrant holds the due of birth. The rightful king is Malcolm. And so Macbeth is not even the king that should be king. It should actually be Malcolm. So what is Malcolm doing? He lives in the English court and received of the most pious Edward. That would be King Edward of England. So Malcolm has gotten cozy with the King of England with such grace that the malevolence of fortune nothing takes from his high respect. So, things seem to be going pretty bad for Malcolm. Actually, they're going pretty good for him. He's gotten tight. He's gotten very friendly with the King of England. And so, what's happened there? Thither Macduff is gone to pray the holy king upon his aid to wake Northumberland and warlike seaward. that by the help of these, with him high above to ratify the work, of course they got to get God involved, we may again give to our tables meat, sleep to our nights, free from our feasts and banquets, bloody knives, do faithful homage, and receive free honors, all which we pine for now. And so essentially saying Macduff has gone to meet with Malcolm and to beg Malcolm to get in touch and talk to his good friend King Edward to essentially raise an army to come back up to Scotland and overthrow Macbeth. And so Macduff has gone essentially on behalf of Scotland, of all the people who want to be free in Scotland, because essentially Macbeth is viewed as a cruel dictator. And this report has so exasperated the king, this is referring to Macbeth now, and this report has so exasperated the king that he prepares for some attempt of war. So Macbeth has gotten wind of this, that Macduff is essentially a traitor, has headed down to England to try to stir up an army to come and fight Macbeth for the throne. And so Macbeth, in response to this, is preparing his armies and soldiers for a war that he feels is coming. Okay. And so this is where we're kind of, that's kind of the main message here. And we'll see. The next says, okay, and that way will advise him to caution to hold what distance his wisdom can provide some holy angel fly to the court of England and unfold his message ere he come, that a swift blessing may soon return to this our suffering country on our cursed hand. Well, we'll pray for Macduff as he goes, that the reports that he give will stir up some kind of sympathy, that that Edward and Malcolm can come back with soldiers, and that Malcolm can take his rightful throne back. Lord, I'll send my prayers with him. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of Act 3. All right, folks, until next time.